What is up, guys? Drunk Raziel here, and today I'm going to talk about something that every game wishes it did as good as Final Fantasy has done throughout the ages. And that's allusions. Not illusions with an I, allusions with an A to other games. I mean, motherfucking fan service at its finest. Okay? And today, we're going to look at plugs in Stormblood specifically. Well, what is fan service? I mean, what qualifies? Well, I'm gonna fucking tell you, and there will probably be some fucking spoilers in here, so if you don't want spoilers, then be a pussy and stop watching right now, okay? So plug your eyeballs into the screen and your ears into my voice, and let's just fucking do this. Jesus Christ.
I am Raziel.
Okay, now many of you may be wondering, I mean, what the fuck is an illusion or a fan service? You mean like references to other games, right? Yes and no. Fan service or illusions fall into a very specific category, okay? They're very distinct. Every game series has its own universe, right? Saying it's a fan service or an illusion that Final Fantasy XIV has behemoths and moogles would be like saying it's a fan service that World of Warcraft has orcs and dwarves. That is all shit that's been a part of their respective universes. Univi? No, that's not a word. Universes since conception. They've been there for as long as the games have. A proper illusion is where a company takes something recognizable from another game in the series and incorporates it into the current game as a sense of fan service and a nod to the past. And anyway, I'm not talking about some bullshit attempt to capitalize on past game success by bringing in the story of an entire previous installment and changing it to be an alternate universe that has no bearing on the current story arc of the game. That's not fan service or illusion. It's called shitty fucking bullshit. Fuck. So what qualifies as a proper illusion or nod to the past? Well, to put it simply, an illusion must meet a few criteria points that I'm going to list right now, so pay the fuck attention, okay? It must, number one, it must not take direct story and plot lines from the game they're originally from and try to weasel themselves into working into the current game's universe. Again, I'm going to reiterate that if the illusion in question has had several appearances in multiple games and it works in all of them, it isn't an illusion or a fan service. It's simply a part of the game and the overall universe of that series. A good example of this, Shiva or Ifrit, whatever. Fucking pronunciations, man. In Final Fantasy, I mean, they've been in the vast majority of the games in the series, so they don't qualify. Number two, an illusion has to be completely unnoticeable as something out of the ordinary to a player that has not played the installment where the reference comes from. Okay, the player should just stroll by believing it wasn't acceptable and original part of the current game. This is the most important part, okay? Illusions and fan service should not be noticeable as anything out that doesn't belong in the current universe. But to someone who gets the reference, that magic nostalgia button gets pressed. We get brought back to that moment years and years and years ago when we first experienced that thing that they put in the game, that illusion. Girl gamers get a little moist in their panties, and the guys have to think of grandma for 30 seconds before they can stand up in public. You know what I'm talking about. That nostalgia button, that feeling. And if you're still confused about what it might be that I'm talking about, well, let me give you an example from the game that fanboys and white knights tout is so great and was created by a company that can make no fucking mistakes. World of Warcraft. Back in the Burning Crusade, there was a moment when the Caverns of Time came out, and there was a dungeon called the Battle for Durnhold Keep, where you rescue Green Jesus, and as you're riding on your stolen horse to victory, you start to hear a reorchestrated soundtrack theme from Warcraft 2. Now, when I first did this, I was ecstatic. I mean, it brought me back to when I played Warcraft 2 in school instead of listening to my typing teacher. Sorry, Mr. Flores, but I gotta kill some fucking orcs, man. Rest in peace, Mr. Flores. He fucking died. Another moment is when, during the April Fool's joke, Blizzard put up a Pandaren, which was a joke reference to Warcraft 3. Of course, they then took this too far to the point where they were shoving these fat, bumbling, racist gummy bears down our throats with a side of pseudo-Chinese wisdom, but I digress. Okay, that's all here, neither here nor there. You see, these things are all references that someone that hadn't played the game wouldn't really notice, and it has no real changing effect on the current game's universe. Now, people saying that Legion and Illidan and all that fucking dumb shit is an allusion to Burning Crusade. No, it isn't. It's bad storytelling, okay? You can't allude to your own game just from an earlier expansion pack. Fuck's sake, people, get me step the fucking fuck back, Blizzard. Okay? Hold Square Enix's beer so they can show you how a master does this shit properly. Okay? Final Fantasy XIV is full of fan service allusions. Many of them are small and tiny, from name references all the way to something big like the Calcabrina fight we saw in Heavensward, which is a boss in Final Fantasy IV. But for this video, we're going to focus solely on some of the major references that I noticed in Stormblood so far. And man, it is riddled with references from one of the all-time greats, Final Fantasy VI. 3, if you played it for the Super Nintendo on the SNES in the United States. Now, to start this off, let's start with the Garlean Empire. Okay, the Garlean Empire is one of the primary antagonists in Stormblood, but how many that haven't played Final Fantasy VI, 3 US, know that the Garlean Empire and its technology itself is based off of the Gestallan Empire from Final Fantasy VI? I mean, from their armor and their Magitech suits and their weapons, it's all taken from Final Fantasy VI. But at the same time, it doesn't take any of Final Fantasy VI characters or direct plot lines and shove it down your fucking throat like a prison inmate does to a fish. Okay? Instead, they just draw a few small similarities to a single character in Final Fantasy VI's Empire, and that's Kefka. I mean, Square Enix gives a huge nod to the main antagonist, Xenos, by making similarities between him and the main antagonist in Final Fantasy VI, who was Kefka. I mean, even his armor, we see that the same color theme, which goes along nicely to the similarities in their personalities. I mean, they got like the same shades, and even though Kefka didn't really wear huge, bulking metal armor, but the color scheme they used for the belt and the robes and that kind of thing is the same color scheme. Both characters were experimented on with Magitech and have gone insane and are unstable because of it. I mean, they both have no allegiance. I can't even fucking talk. Christ almighty. They have no allegiance to the actual Empire, and they're obsessed with their own quest for power and killing. However, their main motives are completely different. Kefka just wants to watch the world burn for the sake of wanting everyone to die because of how miserable and disjointed he is himself. However, Xenos, on the other hand, just loves to kill, but it's because he's after the thrill of the hunt, finding a challenger worthy of a fight. Again, if you never played Final Fantasy VI, you wouldn't have noticed a thing. But for those that did, fuck yeah! I mean, when I saw the close-ups of Xenos and stuff, I was reminded so much of Kefka, but at the same time, Xenos was so much of a unique character. Alright, let's move on. Let's take a look at a specific dungeon in Stormblood, Castrum Abania. I mean, this fucker is just full of references to Final Fantasy VI. Its architecture and theme are so resemblant of the Magitech research facility in Final Fantasy VI, and the bosses are all throwbacks to the same game. I mean, the first boss, Magna Rotor, is a boss from the Magitech research facility from Final Fantasy VI, as you can see here. The second boss, number 24, is a boss from the Cultist Tower in Final Fantasy VI, though when he's in the Cultist Tower in Final Fantasy VI, he has a different name, but he looks the same. And let me tell you, the casuals better thank whatever motherfucking god they worship that he doesn't come with the same mechanics that he did in 6, okay? I mean, you can see where Square alludes to these mechanics in the current iteration of the boss in Final Fantasy XIV. I mean, in Final Fantasy VI, the boss would constantly change its weakness every time you attacked it, and you could only attack him with magical attacks, so he'd always switch, and people go, oh, just use the spell Scan to see his weakness. Well, Scan's a spell. You scan him, and he changes his weakness again. And then when you finally were lucky enough and you got everything together, you know, wore all your reflect rings and all that shit, and you beat him, when he dies, he casts Ultima, which instantly wipes your whole group. I mean, and if you die there, you have to redo the entire tower, unless you were smart enough to go into the tower already having one of your characters learning the Life 3 spell so that you could revive yourself after death. So, yeah, we got it easy in this iteration. When I saw this boss in Final Fantasy XIV, I was instantly brought back to the days of playing Final Fantasy VI in my basement, you know, when I was a kid, on my 14-inch TV with a built-in VCR that had a Back to the Future VHS tape permanently stuck inside.
Great Scott!
Fucking great movie. The final boss of this dungeon is yet again another reference to Final Fantasy VI, with the boss here named Inferno having the same model as the final boss from the Magitech Research Facility. In Final Fantasy VI, the boss is named number 128. Man, you look at that. They took the number and put it on this boss, and then took it off this boss and gave a number to the second. They're doing references on their own references. They're fucking geniuses. Okay. Anyway. So, but he has similar mechanics where his arms do different things in Final Fantasy VI. Again, I want to say, this is important. These are all things to flip that nostalgia switch for players who have played Final Fantasy VI, but players that haven't probably won't notice anything and will just see it as new and it's a new to them. It's really cool, and it's something they've never experienced before. Okay, moving on, right down the line there. Another set of Final Fantasy VI allusions lie just in the whole concept of Doma Castle itself. Doma was a feudal samurai dynasty in Final Fantasy VI, which met its ruin at the hands of Kefka and the Empire. And so, very similar. And in Final Fantasy XIV, it's got a lot of differences though, but it's got one of the greatest throwbacks, and it's something I was thinking instantly when I first saw the Final Fantasy XIV trailer, where it showed Doma on the map, and oh my god, it really got me in the feels the moment when I first met Hien, and it starts to play a reorchestrated version of Cyan's theme from Final Fantasy VI. Here's a little snippet of it so you know what I'm talking about. God damn! I mean, fuck me running that. That brought a tear to my eye. I mean, when it first played, because I was just the whole leveling up process. I was expecting it. Like, I was just waiting for it. I knew the Square, couldn't resist using one of the greatest themes in any Final Fantasy, ever. And not to mention the fact that the Hien and his master, his father, their names in Japanese are the same names of the characters in Final Fantasy VI, Cyan. Look it up. I'm not going to go into the details here, but they're the same name. I mean, a tear was shed, man, for great games gone by, and of course a bunch more for my lost youth and the current alcoholism that I used to drown away the fact that each year I get closer to death and my parents probably don't love me. But who fucking cares about that shit? I'm playing Final Fantasy XIV, and this game is fucking lit. Alright? Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg as far as Stormblood and Square has already announced. I mean, Square has already announced that the first 24-man raid will be the raid called Return to Ivalice, whatever. Ivalice, for those who don't know, is the world in which Final Fantasy XII and Final Fantasy Tactics take place. And fuck, man, if you haven't played Final Fantasy Tactics, which you can get for the PlayStation 1 or the PSP, I think it's available on like your iPad or Android at this point. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, take a deep look inside. What the fuck is fucking wrong with you, man? You should be ashamed of yourself. Final Fantasy Tactics is probably the best, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm not drunk here, but I'm not exaggerating. Final Fantasy Tactics has probably got the best storyline out of any Final Fantasy game ever. Get on that shit. Now. Alright. I think I need to drink like a gallon of water so I don't wake up with a hangover. I mean, and now that I'm in my like mid-30s, a hangover is something that becomes so bad that I feel I need to call the cops or the local news station or something and tell them about it, because it seems like news that's worthy of being reported. How shitty I feel. But anyway, as a little bit of an honorable mention before I go, if you look at, as far as allusions to other games go, you'll recognize that the first boss of the Alamigo dungeon is actually the first boss from Final Fantasy VII, just with a rename. Fuck yeah. Anyway, guys, that'll do it for this video. If you liked it, then please like it in real life and share it with your friends. What are those? I'm lonely. Anyway, click the like button and follow me on Shitter. I mean Twitter, and keep an eye on my Twitch stream, as I'll be starting that up soon. TM. If you didn't like the video, look around the room you're in. It's full of people who give a shit, i.e. nobody but you. And maybe your cat. So go fuck yourself. I don't care if you hated the video, okay?
I don't give a shit.
That's it, guys. Drunk Raziel here. Keep it real. Or don't. No sweat off my sack.